It was 104 degrees the day of the event.
Wow.
But we had 108 athletes from 15 different states fly in, and we actually started cutting people off. That was the largest adult 4-stage competition in history at that time. And it was all based around community. Never gave out any cash prizes, just wanted to create it all about community and family.
Hello, and welcome to the Ninja Babes podcast. I'm your host, Cara Polillo, and today I'm here with Jason Huewe. What's up? Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Cara. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm really stoked to have you on, and this is perfect for so many reasons because I'm excited to talk about USNL, but we've also been in this long stint on the podcast talking about women in sports and more specifically women in ninja and talking about course design and all these different things. So today's going to be a really cool mashup of both of those topics. I'm really excited to get to know you more and to just hear everything that we're going to talk about.
Likewise, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So I am going to let you explain a little bit more about who you are because I realize that you have a pretty long history from what I've gathered of being in the ninja world. So Jason, tell us more about who you are and not just what is your role in USNL, but where did you come from, like in our ninja realm?
That's a loaded question. So a lot of veteran ninjas will know my history, but the community has grown so large since it began. So I'm one of the old guys, and I've been moving and shaking a lot of things behind the scenes for the past 10, 11 years. I started off as a competitor back in 2010. I'm a veteran from seasons 2, 3, 5, and 6. And I initially started training for the show for myself. And after a little while, after season 5, when I was the first time a walk-on, I decided to repurpose what I had was a miniature mega ramp in my backyard as a Ninja Warrior training course. Within a period of 1 year, I ended up taking that backyard course and turning it into the largest private training course in the world and hosting the largest adult Ninja Warrior competition in history at that point in time, which was back in 2014. And all the big names, all the big people that everyone know nowadays, that was their first big platform event. So like Isaac Caldero, Jamie Ron, Daniel Gill, all the big people, everybody that has won Ninja Warrior since actually were all there at that event. And that was the first time anybody had done a 100-foot rope climb in history also. So that was sort of my stomping grounds when I first got started. Never did well on the show, but because of the course and how well I was able to bring the community together, because the community back in those days was much different than what it was or what it is now. It's amazing to see how things have grown. But from that point on, I was able to make it a career. Moved to Atlanta, Georgia. I built the largest ninja playground in the world. It was the first ninja park over 10,000 square feet. Was able to set that up, and I did had the honor of doing some pretty awesome events as well. Besides the CCNWTC, I did James River Men's Conference, designed 2 full-scale regional courses with all original obstacles. We built those simultaneously in a week. This was back in 2016. And that was the largest, I think, spectator event in history at that time. We had over 5,000 spectators between those 2 locations. From there, I did a lot of other work. Did some commercials for 3M adhesives. Ended up befriending the ATS team. Worked with Travis and some other amazing and great people. Hopped on with the ATS team as an advisor for permanent installments because they're amazing team and everybody just they hadn't done anything in the permanent installment world. So I came on sort of to bring my expertise just to help them, not to take over or anything. And then I was pushed over into VP of design of their new sister company, which is ATS Sports International, which many of you may remember, and not the fondest of memories, as ANWE, or American Ninja Warrior Experience.
Yes.
Yeah. So my role with that, I was brought on very early on, and before any other similar event like it, I did all the conceptual design. So I worked together with the owners, designed all the different features, activities, the courses, and created the first challenge towers, created all those concepts, and got all those renders pitches, helped with working with NBC and getting the license, and went through a 1.5-year process of bringing that together. But unfortunately, as we all know, that went belly up 2 weeks before the first event, unfortunately. That was a shock to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And especially me. I'm like, man, like, hey, what's going on today? They're like, oh, well, Monday's going to be your last day. I'm like, what? It's Friday. What do you mean? So I had a 3-day notice, which that's how quick it was for everyone.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, you didn't have it any better than anybody else did, it sounds like.
No, they just, the last day of work was just to call the vendors and say to cancel all the orders. But at the same time, at the end of it, I had the duty of taking care of all the athletes. So I felt really bad because I was in contact with all the major athletes in the first 2 regions, scheduling stuff with them. So did what I could. I talked to my good friend, Kenny at Atomic, and worked with him and one of my other partners at High Lead Apparel, and was able to get over $1,000 of products donated to AZ on the Rocks. So that way, all the people that paid for their plane tickets, that were able to make it that way, they had some consolation, some prizes, something. It wasn't my fault that it went under, but I felt responsible, so to some degree, so I wanted to give back to the community any way that I could find. And yeah, so right after that, I started the obstacle design group literally 2 months later, and I've been running that for 3 years now.
Wow. That is such an amazing backstory, and I'm really glad that I just let you explain that for yourself without me trying to do all the, the recon, because I did Google you as much as possible, and I asked around to people. Yeah, I always try, no matter who's coming on, to ask around, do my own research, just to know as much about the person as I can. And so I definitely knew a lot of your highlights, but I'm so glad to hear the full story from you. So yeah, that's really cool. And I'm curious, back to that first big backyard comp that you were mentioning, where was that? What state was that in?
That was in California. Okay. To be honest, that was in my parents' backyard. They had 2 acres of open land. And cool. Previously, I had owned a skateboarding business after I graduated high school called Scoff Skateboarding. And one of the things that I had done as part of that business was try to create a documentary film about building a miniature mega ramp, because those were just starting to get in at that time. So I built this monster skateboard ramp in my parents' backyard that was 2 stories tall and half a football field long.
Oh my goodness.
We jumped it a couple times, but unfortunately one calculation was off, and so we were landing about 2 feet short, so it was unlandable. A 2-year project came to fruition, and it was nothing. It was awesome, made for great video, but nothing happened with it. So it sat around for 4 years until I took a break on season 4 of ANW. And then after I saw that they sort of brought Mount Midoriyama to Las Vegas, then I was really motivated. And so I decided, you know what, this ramp's been sitting in my backyard for my parents' backyard for 3 to 4 years. Why not just deconstruct it and then use whatever leftover wood I have and start building obstacles out of it? So did that. And then after a year, I decided to open up to the public, and started having local events. First one was 13 people. Second one was 27 people. Then I created this crazy idea. I said, well, why don't I tell people I'm going to do this big renovation to my backyard course, document it, and tell people, it's your registration that's going to pay for these upgrades. So if you don't register, you're not going to have these obstacles to train on, which was the absolute truth. And it was the only way I could see about making the course grow. So it actually worked. I raised $600, put all of it back into the course, was able to build a stage 3 section, had 30 people, all come from California. And then I just repeated that every season. So that was the first summer invite. We had like 35 people, did a fall one. We had 50 people from about 3 different states come, did a winter one in January, and did some incredible things for the community, which no one had really ever done. We created the first themed t-shirts, and they were super comfy t-shirts because everyone at that time was all about branding themselves in their gyms. And there wasn't that many gyms, but there were so few ninja gyms that everyone's like, please come to ours, come to ours. And so they always just create logo shirts. And they're basic shirts. So the concept I had was I want to create a super comfy t-shirt. So that way you have no excuse to wear it any time of the day. Even if you don't like the graphic, you can still wear it around at your house and still feel comfortable. So did that, and I paid for health insurance.
Oh my gosh.
Every athlete was actually insured. So if you didn't have health insurance, you're on my course, you broke your arm, you could actually use the health insurance provided to take care of your medical bills.
Wow.
Which no one had ever done. So we did that for our winter invite in 2014. And then I started working with a big company, which I signed my contract to move to Atlanta, Georgia. And I was working over there for a little while, and I was going to come back home and I was going to host the last event. So this course, like I said, had only really been open for 1 year, and grew over 6,000 square feet within 1 year. Our last event spent no more than 2 months of planning, and I didn't have that much time to build, but was still able to add 4 new obstacles, expanded, added over 4,000 square feet of shade, because it's being held in the middle of July. And that was the hottest time in Clovis, California. It was 104 degrees the day of the event.
Wow.
But we had 108 athletes from 15 different states fly in. And we actually started cutting people off. That was the largest adult 4-stage competition in history at that time. And it was all based around community. Never gave out any cash prizes. Just wanted to create it all about community and family. And it really had that feeling. So when we shut that down, other people started taking over sort of that role. And that's where Mike Cook sort of...
This whole time I kept thinking about Mike Cook.
Yeah, Mike Cook sort of fulfilled that role. About a year, he started doing his stuff right around the CCNWTC was closing. And then he didn't really have his huge events till about a year after the CCNWTC closed. And sort of took over that whole. So I was very grateful to see that.
Absolutely. I love hearing this history and just the stories, because like you said, I mean, when I came into Ninja Warrior, it was the season 9 time. I didn't compete on the show till season 10, but I always, I came into it always knowing this like rich history of community. I was part of like M Lab in the beginning in New Jersey. So I always, I feel like I was ushered into that, but this is still like your grassroots time was still different. And compared to now, it's definitely different as well. So it's really cool to hear all that.
Yeah, it was a new world back then. Almost everything you did was new and innovative. So like some of the things, it's just crazy. I started designing and selling build packages so people can learn how to build obstacles, but I was criticized for that when I started doing that, which now nobody would think that, but back in the early days, if you design an obstacle or if you want to figure out how to make a warped wall, you draw it on a napkin, you give it to a friend, it's, you share all that information. It's free. You share it. And that's, that's how the Japanese did it. And so that's how the early people of A&W saw it. But when I looked at it, I'm like, well, I'm going to build this in CAD. I'm going to create a whole entire checklist, buy sheet, professional drawings. And at the end, I put in 12, 14 hours to create a 14-page packet that told someone exactly how to build a warped wall or a salmon ladder. And then I sold those for like $15 or $40 online. And that was just a fun to raise funds for my backyard course at that time. But a lot of people thought it was wrong because I was charging people money for it. But good news is that actually is what started seeding the original backyard movement. David Campbell inspired everyone with his course, and everyone wanted to build something, but no one really knew how. And so over the course of about 3 years, I sold over 15,000 packages around the world that taught people how to build warped walls and salmon ladders, among other stuff. And that's, it was crazy. So that was able to plant little seeds around the world.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so cool. And I can understand that mentality, especially in the beginning of wanting to protect something that's like so community and family based, and seeing almost like disapproving of selling part of it. And I get that. But I also understand the value of what it is, and how will it grow if there's not some sort of funding or that pooling of resources, and sometimes money has to be involved with that. But I definitely hear what you're saying. Even now it's strange. It's strange sometimes to go to or hear about some of these places that have like ninja set up or like obstacles set up, and you get there and you're like, this seems like such a watered down version of what I know to be the real thing. But I think that's just part of what happens in marketing, and as something begins to grow, it just gets passed along. But
and even so, like, I still, if people want to know, hey, what's the radius? Like, if they just want basic information, I tell them up front. It's not like I'm saying the dimensions are private and I can't share them with you. I'm happy to share the dimensions with you if you want to go and build it yourself. But if you want to take advantage of all the hours and the time that was put into thought into preparing all that, that's really what they were paying for.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, that leads right into what you're doing now, right? So with Obstacle Design Group, did you really end up transforming a lot of your original obstacles and designs into what is now part of your professional work and what you're doing?
In a way. In a sense, I've really stepped ahead of where I came from. So originally, that is my grassroots, was the backyard build packages, right? And then creating the monstrous course. I started a design company right after that, and that's what landed my initial jobs into turning this into a career. And then the Obstacle Design Group really is the accumulation of all my knowledge over the past 8 years. Plus, now I've gone into manufacturing, where previously I didn't manufacture anything. So now we're really stepping 5 years into the future with what the Obstacle Design Group is doing and I'm doing here. Is I'm really seeing where the sport is going to be in 5 years. What kind of precautions need to be made? How will athletes and gyms progress? And then really creating the future and bringing it now, so that way people have those tools to use to prepare them for what's to come. Because eventually, and well, to be honest, it already is a sport. But to see it recognized as a sport by outside organizations and coming through the Olympics, which we're already working on Olympic format, means ATS M standards are going to come into place, and a lot of other big rules people aren't considering. Plus, how do gyms change their courses for their individual classes? So there's really a transformation that gyms will probably need to go through. And right now, it's in terms of it's a battle between budget versus features is the main thing. So a lot of people and a lot of gyms will purchase lower cost goods and fill up their gyms with that because it's something they can afford and they can easily remove them, reattach them, replace them, which makes complete sense. It allows them to be versatile in that effect. But like where the ODG really shines is creating multifunctional obstacles that are designed more like a piece of fitness equipment. that is an obstacle instead of an element. So I don't want to go off too much track. I can really go down the rabbit hole in this area, but I'll give you two examples here.
Sure.
One's on both sides of the spectrum. So, for instance, you mentioned previously our stealth ladder, or let's say Da Vinci's arrow. Da Vinci's arrow is a very unique obstacle that can turn into and be used as about 9 different obstacles, and it's built very stout. Because I know how ninjas play with obstacles and how abusive they can be and how they use things how they're not necessarily intended sometimes.
Oh, yeah. All the time.
Oh, yeah. Trust me. And I've done it myself as well. So, the Da Vinci's arrow is based off of the DNA of a flying squirrel, but it has hooks built into the bottom of it that make it look like a clock hand or like an arrow pointing down. So this allows you to rack rings and bars on it. It also has what's called a selection collar. It's a collar that's mounted to the pipe that it's bolted to up at the top, and can actually control the range of motion of the arrow or lock it perpendicular to the floor. And this really opens up what you can do with the arrow and how you can change its level of difficulty in just a minute. So, one of the things I learned through my early years of professional design is, a lot of these things, after you get them up, to be able to use or modify has to be easy enough for a 14-year-old girl to do it. It can't be heavy, can't be hard. It just needs to be nice and easy for someone just to make adjustments, and that's it. It shouldn't be rocket scientists, and you shouldn't need tools to do it, preferably. So, like with Da Vinci's arrow, you have a spring-loaded pin. You pull it out and you insert it into a different hole through the arrow. And you can actually change its release angle. So maybe it only goes back 15 degrees, but can go forward 45 degrees. So if you don't want to give a person a big backswing to lâcher forward, you can do that. Or you can allow a person to have a big backswing and then stop them directly at 90 degrees. So then now they have to take whatever momentum they have in their backswing. Their arrow abruptly stops, and they have to be efficient with their body to carry the momentum and throw it forward to the next object that they're trying to grasp.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I'm like envisioning what you're saying, and you're making me really want to find one and do it. Like, that's so cool.
It's crazy. So you can take it, use it as a flying squirrel. You can do flying ring toss, flying bar hopper. You can lock them in place and do deja vu with them. You can even do a whole bunch of other different variations with them. So it's an extremely diverse obstacle. It does have a higher price point, but it's made from quality materials. You can lâcher to it from 16 feet away, coming at it sideways, and you're not going to damage it. It's made to take the abuse that ninjas put into it. And, if you're Najee Richardson trying to do a 20-foot lâcher world record, it's going to be able to handle that from any dimension you take it on at. On the flip side, real quick, going into safety, we developed the best safety pads out there. That's, not just for safety when a person lands on it, but we're looking at ATSM standards. And you don't want to put ladders on top of padding, because that can damage the pads over time and they'll prematurely wear out. And then, as much fun as it is to climb on truss and pipe rigging, actually, according to normal safety standards, you shouldn't do that if it's over 10 feet unless you're rigged into it via a harness. So having a ladder to do that is the safest method to change out obstacles. So we actually designed pads that are very secure to the floor and actually break open from the center and fold up and out and hold themselves in place leaning against the rig. And it opens up more than 3/4 of the floor. So we can take 1,000 square foot rig and completely open up the floor space in under a minute with the designs and the technology we created with the safety padding. And that way, for the future, when all these other rules and regulations come into place that come with sports that are becoming sort of recognized, we have all these safety pads and obstacles and everything that are all set into place and ready for the future.
Yeah, I love that forward thinking. And I'm just sitting here thinking, like, wow, I've never ever changed an obstacle or like holds or anything with the ladder. I've literally always climbed up on top of whatever it is. And it definitely doesn't always feel safe, but it's just so good to think about like where's the sport going and what is the future and how can we design gyms better. Um, are there gyms that are completely outfitted with like ODG obstacles and like the setup and everything, or is it more like people tend to buy like piecemeal type things?
It's a mix of both. Some people buy a couple obstacles here and there. The Da Vinci Zero is our best-selling obstacle. We have those and our stealth ladders, which we were the first one to start integrating rubber into our obstacles to not only reduce sound, but to also reduce strain on tendons. So
Mhm.
that way obstacles are more forgiving for repeat use.
Mhm.
But recent ones we did in 2020, there's a smaller gym called Ninja Warrior Arena in Mississippi that just had a Ultimate Ninja League competition. Um, they're black and green. They were completely outfitted by us. And then one in Canada that's about to open up right now, which is a massive one. It's a 10,000 square foot, and they have newly released obstacles that no one has ever had before, like a stealth rumbling dice, loaded rumbling dice rails. Um, we have some crazy new obstacles that are up in there that no one has seen before, and I would probably say it's one of the most versatile gyms in the world. Um,
Wow.
and they have the full padding system built in there. We branded everything for them, so it's a beautiful gym. If you want to look them up, it's Cardia, which is, I forget if it's Greek or whatnot for heart.
Wow.
But they should be opening soon.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. Yes, I know you just mentioned this, but talking about like the stealth salmon ladder, I was so curious when I read about that on your website because I dislocated my shoulder season 11. And, ever since then, I'm constantly rethinking like the jarring effects of all of the obstacles. And just thinking about that and wondering like how has practicing salmon ladder over and over for, hours or whatever, like how has that brought more wear and tear to my shoulder than necessary, and like what are ways that we can do things better and from like a health standpoint. So I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the rubber, I can't say what kind of specific rubber it is, but the rubber we use is very sturdy. And to be honest, when it comes to a salmon ladder, when people perform it, they typically overdo it. They know one or two ways of doing a salmon ladder, and it's typically going ham. It's just going all out, go up, put force
Mm-hmm.
into it. So first, I'm going to address not necessarily the ladder itself, but how people actually perform a salmon ladder.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what comes into the wear and tear. As if you can go up and think of floating. I used to train ninja athletes at my old place in Atlanta, the mega park that I built. And they would always go as hard and as crazy as they can. And that's actually putting the most amount of strain and force into your joints, in your fingers, your wrist, your forearms, your shoulders. And I said, I want you to practice this. And this is a very loud salmon ladder, just made from hollow aluminum and steel parts. So it echoed everything. But I said, I want you to do the salmon ladder as quiet as possible. Try to do it as softly as possible and put as little energy. Only use as much as you need. And it took a couple tries. But then he just started going, and it's just so much quieter and softer, and he was going so smooth through the obstacle. And it's just a lot of us is trained just to put maximal effort or a lot of effort into doing this. And this is why a lot of times you see when people do salmon ladder, they'll actually go about 4 to 6 inches above the rung. They'll
Mm-hmm.
hit the bar so much higher than they actually need to go. And to think you're actually exerting extra energy. So you can actually dial in your salmon ladder technique and actually reduce the strain on your tendons just by trying to practice that. Combine that with the salmon ladder that we developed, the rubber in there does help reduce the initial impact. So we have it on the face of it and where the bar drops down. So where the bar makes the two contact points, where it hits the face of the ladder and then drops into the cup. So this is great. It's going to be minimal, but it's still effective.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not really going to notice a difference unless you're doing salmon ladder a lot.
Hmm. That's so interesting. I think my first question with that was like, would it feel sticky? You know what I mean? Like when you drop the bar into the cradle, is it going to feel like it gets stuck and you need an extra like flinch to pull it out? You know what I mean?
No, not at all. So we went through about 3 different rubbers until we found the one that we liked. So one, we wanted to make sure it's not sticky. It had a quick release, and it felt as much like a normal salmon ladder as possible. So you'll feel the hit. And then we also designed the cradle where it fits in an oversized diameter. So most bars that are used are about 1.25 inches OD. So we used a cradle that was 1.5 inches OD when we curved out that curvature. And that just gave this nice open room. So there's no risk of any type of wedging or where 2 points might try to come and grab the bar. So it has a very nice quick release. You've seen these ladders, Ninja Nation, especially the ones in Frisco, and that's what they have ours. You've seen their Mega Tower, their Heroes Tower.
Okay. Yes.
That's one of our features we designed. So that's a mega stealth ladder. I think that's one of our older models. So our first 2 years, we had the rungs separate from the actual panels. So we would bolt the rungs into the panels. The rungs were made from high impact ABS plastic, and then we had a removable rubber insert that actually dropped and was bolted into the impact zone. And that was one of 2 designs we had when we were first launching this obstacle, and we decided to go with that one initially. The other one was a sandwich design where we had 2 sheets that would sandwich the rubber in between. After about 2 years of going through that initial bolt-on design, we decided to move to a more streamlined version, which is that sandwich version. And that's been working really great. And we like that one, and we're sticking with that design moving forward. It's also more lower price point, so it's easier for people to afford those ladders. Mm-hmm. And we designed the rubber pieces are consumables. So over time and multiple impacts, the rubber will wear away. But we designed it so you just take out anywhere from 3 to 5 screws that hold that in, and you can just pop in a new rubber insert. You don't need to replace the ladder.
Yeah, that's great. Super interesting. No, I love it. I love talking about obstacles and like hearing about new inventions and innovations because it's pretty cool.
Thank you.
So talking about USNL specifically then, will the whole course be outfitted by Obstacle Design Group?
Great question. USNL is going to be pretty unique. To answer your question there, not necessarily. We are going to be designing the entire flow of the event, and the goal is to create a full-scale A&W feel. Okay. I can tell you right now, we're probably not going to go with a full height. We're going to keep everything sort of low elevation, but we're looking at doing elevated platforms. So how I feel with any like serious competition, there should be at no point where you come and make contact with the floor. Everything, if you're on the course, you're above the ground. And that's how this competition is going to be ran. So you're going to start on a platform, you're going to run through the obstacles. And if you run off the course, that's that. You need to stay on the course for the entire run and make it through each of your obstacles. When it comes to the obstacles themselves, we are going to be designing and manufacturing some ones. I'm going to pull from the black book. So you may not know about this. Some of the older veterans know about the black book. It's a personal book of mine that I put some of the most innovative, crazy obstacles in, and they actually live in that book until someone specifically comes to us and be like, hey, we need a unique obstacle, or we want something really cool for this event. Doesn't have to be hard, but we want something that's just awesome and makes the competition different. Then we open up the black book, and a person signs an NDA. We go through it, figure out which one matches the best for them, and then we hop on it and we manufacture it. And there's some obstacles in here that we've never told anyone, or maybe 1 or 2 people might know about it. that end up eventually 5 or 6 years down the road pop up on the TV show. And we're like, yep, just ahead of the game. Example, the dragon obstacle that just came out in season 12.
Okay. The dragon back?
Yeah, that was designed back in 2014. It was actually planned for my last competition at the CCNWTC, but I ran out of time because I only had 2 months to organize the entire event and build any new obstacles. So,
Wow. So
and
wait, then how did it sneak on to season 12?
it didn't sneak on. They created it
Okay.
from their own imagination. It's their props to the ATS team, and absolutely. And let me say this: I've worked with them. I respect the hell out of those guys. I'm not taking anything away from them. They did an amazing job producing the show. To my knowledge, they invented and created that obstacle all on their own. So it's just a matter of that we designed it ages ago, and happy to bring it out for anybody or when an event calls for it. But it just lived in the book until A&W thought it up and built it and produced it for the TV show.
Yeah. I mean, ATS is pretty creative over there. So
they're extremely
I'm
creative.
not surprised.
Yeah, they're good people.
For sure.
Moving into the structure for the USNL, there's actually going to be 3 days.
Okay.
First is going to be your qualifier day. So when you register, you're going to come to qualifiers and you're going to be able to run the course. And this is going to be interesting here because only on this day, we're going to break everything up into 2 divisions, male and females, and weight classes. So and you're going to go head to head against other people in your weight class.
Okay.
So if you're a lightweight ninja, that might be a little more speedy, or let's say you're Michael Johnson, who, he's beefy and he's so strong. Good friend of mine. He's my ninja son, but he's right around 215. So he would be a light heavyweight. So he would actually only race against light heavyweights to start, which makes it evens out the playing field really well, actually, for athletes. So this applies for males and females. So you start off only going against people in your weight class. And then after that, then you move into brackets that are with all the top people from each weight class until that day we get to the top 50 male and female times on the course, completions in the fastest time. So that's qualifiers.
And is qualifiers like one run and that's it, like one and done, or?
I would say count on your one run.
Okay.
And in discussions I've had with our team is if we have time, we may cycle through, but I'm going to say that's not necessarily guaranteed because we don't know exactly how many people are going to be organized, how many people are going to register to run, and how much time we'll have the entire day or how long we'll pull on production for that. So just know you'll at least get your one run in.
Got it. And then the other question I had before you move on is with the weight class, is there also an age, there's no age divisions, but is there like an age minimum? Because I'm just thinking, like,
Yes.
I feel like a lot of women don't really change in weight much as they go on. Like, I've been the same weight since I was 20, so.
I hear you. There's only one age requirement is that you have to be 18 or older.
Got it. Okay.
Day 2 is filming for the pilot. Now this is going to be on BEIN Sports Network, which is actually a pretty huge sports network. They're the fastest growing sports network in the United States, and they have over 33 million subscribers in the US and Canada. So it's going to be really awesome. So this is sort of like the official day 1, which is going to be Saturday. We're going to take the top 50 men and put them in a double elimination bracket.
Okay.
And then we're going to do the same respective to women. There's no weight classes now. And this is for filming for The Ultimate Ninja, which is the first episode, your pilot episode. And so this is all going to be for $10,000, which is a huge cash purse. So double elimination for men, double elimination for women, until we get to the fastest man and the fastest woman. And then they will go head to head on the course.
Pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. So I'm really excited about the format and how things turn out. And yeah, the course is going to be the same for everybody. I am going to balance out the course a bit, since we are looking at splitting the playing fields here, really. We are breaking up genders. Men are typically much stronger in the upper body division, where women have much better agility and strength in the lower body part of their physiology. So we're going to be balancing out maybe with some more balance and agility type obstacles. We're going to be sticking with a 7 obstacle format unless something changes. But yeah, I would say expect a little bit more balance between upper body and balance and agility.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting to hear. I was wondering a lot about what were going to be considerations, or were there going to be any differences between like the men and women's course? But also, I just lost my train of thought. Oh man. Oh, sorry. Also, are you looking at this as a speed course type of a course, or are you just looking at it, it's not necessarily for speed, but like whoever's fastest will qualify? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. So qualifiers, we are looking at doing this more of a speed course. And that's to allow us to get through everyone within the day, because, we very well may get 300 or let's say 400 people. And we're going to need to push through them within the span of a day or less.
Right.
So having a course that everyone can push through in X amount of estimated time is really going to be important. And then you're going to see the course slowly start developing and shifting as the competitions change.
Will there be 2 courses being run simultaneously then for men and women?
No, there won't be.
Okay.
There will be one course. It's a pretty interesting and pretty cool layout. So this is being filmed within TES Studios, and I think it's pronounced Pompano Beach, Florida. And they have a massive 30,000 square foot warehouse. Okay. But we have a strict footprint of 40 feet by 100 feet. So imagine if you stepped foot on the production of A&W, their entire course from the first obstacle to the warped wall, we basically have to make it fit in that little small box.
Really? It's like about the same footprint?
It is, yeah. So we're not running the course linearly. We're going to weave it. Okay. But each obstacle is going to be about the standard length of every obstacle that you see on the TV show. So we're really recreating a full-scale format, as I like to call it. A lot of gyms create obstacle bays that are anywhere between 16 and 20 feet long. All these obstacles are going to be longer. They're going to be about the same length as what you find when you go to the A&W.
So yeah, that's really interesting. So then when, like on A&W, those bays for like each obstacle, how long is it? Like even the span of the water itself, because that's what I'm imagining as like what I'm actually working through. Like how long is that span?
Yeah, that span is typically anywhere between 24 and 32 feet. And if you ever want to know, you could just count the truss. If you look at the spans of the truss that make up that bay, you can actually count how many struts they have and know exactly how long they are.
Oh, who knew? It's good to know.
Yeah, it's just for your own curiosity. So if you ever want to figure that out later and look at certain things, you're like, oh, it's this big, it's that long, it's this tall. You could just figure it out just by looking at the truss and how many struts are in it.
Yeah, that's good to know. It doesn't always feel that long when you're standing there. Like sometimes it does, but sometimes it really doesn't. So I really had no concept of how long it was.
A great before anybody figured that out back in the early days when it was all in Venice Beach, everyone would hop on the camera, the free camera, and take control over it and try to spy on the course being built in the park.
Hmm.
And they would try to compare the obstacles to trucks that are nearby. It's like, oh, well, that truck's 14 feet tall or 14 feet long, so that obstacle must be this long. Oh my gosh, it's huge. But no one had any accurate way of measuring it, and until some of us just started digging in a little more and getting smart and be like, oh, hey, this is standard equipment. This size is provided for free everywhere on the internet or wherever you want to buy it. So we just look at it, compare it, be like, oh, it's this big. Oh, that's easy.
Yeah, that's really funny. Um, so then another question I had is for how many competitors you'll be taking on for that first day. Will there be a limit of how many registrations you accept, or are you even trying to find a balance with like how many males to females? I know I've heard, and I assume it's true, that on ANW they usually do get tons more male applicants than females. So I'm just wondering about that balance if you're going to have to do a cutoff at a certain point.
Um, I'm not exactly sure about a cutoff. We don't have a limit right now. I know we are definitely, we want a huge female representation here at USNL.
Hmm.
Um, you know, and that's why we're trying to go head to head equal with male and females, 50 males, 50 females. I would like to see at least, 100 females, more than that if possible, um, come to this event and this competition. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for so many people and for so many females. It's just so my hopes are high that we're going to have a great female turnout. We're definitely developing this course as sort of like an even playing field for the two different types of physiology. Um, and I'm spending a lot of intelligent research into trying to get this to be as fun, creative, um, for all types of ninjas and athletes. Because the amazing thing about USNL is actually it incorporates so many other types of athletes in their location and in their brand. Actually, it's most competitions you go to that are ninja related, it's 99% ninja athletes. But with USNL, you see a mix of bodybuilders, athletes from different sports, calisthenics athletes. So it's going to be a really cool mix. I think it's going to be a great mixer for the ninja community to get in touch with other athletes who are into this as well too. So it's going to be a really cool opportunity for everyone to mesh together.
Yeah, and when you explain that, like, has USNL done other events like this before, or is this really the first like large scale
No,
TV series?
this is their first time going into the TV series, and BEIN Network really opened it up for them and gave them a great platform to come on with this. But previously, what they have done before is they've contracted with trade shows, like Europa and a couple other ones where they built a course in those halls and they held competitions. Those aren't necessarily what we're going to see here. Those ones were, how do we say, it's a little bit more basic. So they had the truss, they had a great setup, truss, beautiful airbags, and they had like atomic holds, some
Mhm.
nets, and they had a foam warped wall. It's great for mobile use. And they had some really difficult obstacles set up between those different elements. But that's what they've done before. And because they've really integrated themselves into the fitness world, that's why they have such a good mix of different athletes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Um, a few other things I was wondering is, will there be two separate prizes for top man and top female when it comes down to that last head to head, or is it really just going to be one grand prize at the end?
It's going to be one grand prize at the end.
Gotcha. And then I was also wondering about testing. I know so many of us have been involved with testing for A&W in the past.
Mhm.
Is there going to be any sort of testing group that's brought in similar to how ATS does it and how they do it on A&W? Or
Yeah, I
what are your thoughts?
expect so.
Yeah.
In my thoughts, we are going to have some new obstacles that will need to be tested through and vetted to make sure they're exactly how we want them to work. And then we'll probably need course testers, after we finish setting up the course for the TV to make sure we can dial it in. We don't have any plans or any official documents for that right now, but it is something we are planning on having.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Well, I definitely would love to stay in touch even as we get closer to the event to allow, if you are looking for course testers, are you looking for anything else as far as like input? I'm sure that you have your plan set in place, but I know the community is getting excited about this because it's definitely different. But I think the other concern that I wanted to ask was, um, is this in your mind, do you think this is going to interfere with when A&W will be filming, at least for one of the regions? If they do it that way, I know this year with Corona, it's kind of hard to tell, but um, I think the dates that I saw for the event are in March. Is that right?
They have been bumped back an additional month. So we are
Okay.
going to be filming this at the end of April.
Okay. Do you think that that could possibly interfere with A&W?
Um, I think it's possible, but not likely. It's really all up to the production team and what the production team and the NBC decides. To be honest, they probably already have a date in mind. They're just not ready to release that information yet.
Mm.
Um, if they stick to a normal schedule, 2020 was a wild year for everyone.
Yeah.
And that's why production was pushed back so far, is because everyone's trying to figure that out. But just assuming here, I don't know anything, and I'm not associated with NBC production or the ATS team anymore, just to make that clear. So just an assumption, if they liked that format and they wanted to reproduce that again because the policies for COVID-19 really haven't gone away, then they would simply reproduce that, maybe with some updated standards. So my guess is that they'll probably try to stick to a normal schedule of what they had years past, which would be filming in March, and then only do a one spot location because, to be honest, it's much easier to control the safety standards. It's easier to control everything in the entire environment than moving multiple locations and all the logistics that go along with that, and then trying to maintain safety standards for that size of a production will be crazy. So that's my guess, is that they'll probably have it March and they'll stick with a single location and try to recreate what they did before. But we'll just have to wait and find out.
Yep. You never know. Yeah. Well, it's been really cool just picking your brain and hearing all about USNL and everything that you've done with Obstacle Design Group. And even just, I feel like I got a history lesson in the ninja world. So I really appreciate that.
No worries.
Yeah.
One thing I want to point out to everyone listening to the podcast, if you guys are interested, you want to learn more information about the United States Ninja League, USNL, you can go to the Ultimate Ninja.tv to find out more information. That website's going to be constantly updated as time goes on. So you can find out information, locations, all that stuff on there, along with some of the weight classes and other stuff. And definitely you can register on there as well, too.
Yeah, I'm really excited to keep sharing about the event, and we'll be linking to all that information from the podcast and on our website as well. So
Fantastic.
awesome. Is there anything else you wanted to share before we say bye?
Let me see here. Be prepared for some fun obstacles. And if you want a hint of what's to come, maybe look what happened last time I opened up my black book.
Oh boy. All right.
But we're not going to go as crazy as I did that one last time. I'll give you a hint. There was a wall that no one had ever seen before.
Okay.
And it did exactly what it was supposed to do. It stroked fear into the heart of every ninja that saw it, even all the veterans. And this was before the mega wall. So maybe we might bring that back in a scaled version. But there was also, just to give you another taste, there was Da Vinci's Hanger, which was the first ever mechanical cliffhanger. Unfortunately, we weren't able to vet it and take it through proper prototype and testing. We just had to build it and hope it worked. Didn't quite work, but it was a cliffhanger with peg wheels that were tied into cliffhanger ledges. And so the cliffhanger was unfinished. So you have to climb to a peg wheel, crank it over 2 to 3 times, and it would move the cliffhanger ledge into position so you can complete the gap and continue on.
Whoa. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, so it was epic. We did the math. It was a 32-foot long cliffhanger that had nearly 50 feet of work put into it if you laid out the peg wheel into a linear track. So
wow.
It was a massive, epic cliffhanger. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work like that, but that's a story for another time.
Yeah, that sounds pretty wild. Well, I'm going to write down all those hints like a riddle and try to figure out this wall obstacle.
Also, one other thing, we are going to be working on weekly vlogs on the building of the course and designing it.
Nice. Yeah. Where can people find that? Or where will people be able to find it?
You'll be able to find it on our website. We're going to create a blog for it and a page where we're going to have more information. We're going to need to make some updates to the website. But we're working on our first episode right now, basically what we went over last week. How does design start? How do we model the stuff? What programs do we use? Sort of the base of how things come together. And then we'll just keep you guys updated as things progress through there. We're not going to divulge the obstacles. Those are going to stay secret, but we'll show you the process of how we make everything and get everything designed and ready.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Awesome. We'll definitely link to all that as it comes out. And yeah, I'm really excited about this event.
So. Me too. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah. Well, Jason, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate your time, and it's been awesome talking to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Cara, and thank you for having us.
Are you as pumped as I am? I cannot wait to register for this event. You can register by going to www.theultimateninja.tv. Now, you must be 18 or older to register. Again, the event dates are April 23rd through 25th in Miami at Pompano Beach, Florida. There is so much to look forward to with this competition between the filming of Ultimate Ninja and the City Team Finals. It's going to be an incredible few days. Here at Ninja Babes, we want to help you get to this competition. That is why when you go to registration, you can say you found out about this event through the Ninja Babes podcast, and you can get half off your registration by using code NINJABABES, all caps. This is a big deal. That's $100 off your registration. And to make it even better, here at Ninja Babes, we have decided that for everyone who is registered for this event using code NINJABABES, you'll be entered into a drawing. And so in April, before the competition dates happen, we will be picking 3 names from those who have registered using our code, and we will then reimburse your registration if you are chosen. So we're picking 3 lucky winners to get their registration completely paid off by Ninja Babes. That's right, you heard us. So use the code, be entered to get free registration, and we'll be picking those names in April before the event happens. Thanks for listening, Ninja Babes.